Okay, today we're going to be learning how to draw Bohr models. Bohr model is it's a picture that shows how protons, neutrons, and electrons are arranged in the atom. So yesterday we talked about how protons and neutrons are inside the nucleus in the very middle, and then electrons kind of surround the nucleus and fly around. So we want to have some way that we can draw this picture to represent each of these elements. When we draw Bohr models, Bohr comes from our scientist that we covered, Niels Bohr, and his idea was that the electrons orbit around the nucleus in this shell, these different energy levels, and they kind of sit and they go around the nucleus like a planet goes around the sun. We know that this isn't the perfect definition of how electrons move, but it's still really, really good to draw pictures this way. So what Niels Bohr came up with, and it's still true today, is that there are certain energy levels away from the nucleus that the electrons can be found in. So he said they were shells, and we could have 1 shell, 2 shell, 3 shell, and so on and so on. Each energy shell is only going to be able to carry a certain number of electrons, and there's a mathematical formula for finding it. And that mathematical formula is 2n squared. And n represents the shell number. So if I'm in the first energy shell, I'm going to put a 1 in my formula. So I would have 2 times 1 squared. 1 squared, 1 times 1 is 1, times 2 would be 2. So in the first energy shell, I can hold 2 electrons. If I were to bump up to, let's say, the third energy shell, I'm going to replace the n with the 3. 3 times 3 squared, 3 times 3 is 9, times 2 would give me 18 electrons in that shell. So you just use that formula, 2n squared, to see how many electrons you can put on each shell. So there's 3 steps to draw these Bohr models. The first one is you're going to go through and see how many protons, neutrons, and electrons each of these atoms have in them. Step 2 is you're going to draw the nucleus, so you're going to include protons and neutrons in the nucleus. And then the third step is to add your electrons in those energy shells. A couple things. You're only going to want to draw the energy shells you need. And there's a rule that says that the electrons have to fill up the lower levels before they can go up a level. And this is something called the Aufbau principle. A quick tip that's going to help you when you're drawing these things is if you look at the period that the element is in. So we have our periodic table, and it's divided into rows, and each row is a period. It's a special name it's given, thus the periodic table. If you look at elements in the first period, so these two here, you have hydrogen and helium. If I'm in the first period, I'm going to have 1 energy level. If I go down a row to the second period, so lithium and beryllium all the way through fluorine and neon, those guys are going to have 2 energy shells, and so on and so on. So this would have 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down. The only exception are these guys here. If you were to draw those, they don't really fit that rule. But it will help you draw anything rows 1 through 5. Okay, I'm going to do a couple examples for you, and then you're going to get some practice on your own. But the first one, we're going to draw boron together. So the first thing you do, first step, is determine the number of protons, electrons, and neutrons in your atom. If you look at your periodic table, boron's atomic number is 5. So right away I know there are 5 protons and 5 electrons. Neutrons are that a little bit different. You have to look at atomic mass. For boron it is 10.8 something something. I have to take my mass minus my atomic number to get my number of neutrons. So in this case, 10.8 is going to round to 11 minus 5 equals 6 neutrons. Step 1 is complete. Erase this stuff over here. Okay, step 2 is I want to draw the nucleus of my atom. And I'm going to show you the shortcut way to do it. You could come in here and fill in 5 little dots to represent the protons and 6 little dots to represent neutrons. But we're just going to make a circle, and in the middle we're going to write P for protons, and there are 5 of them, and N for neutrons, and there are 6 of them. So our nucleus is done. The last thing is we want to put these 5 electrons on those energy shells. And the tip was, each row you're in is going to add an energy shell. So we are talking about boron, which is in the second row. So we are going to need 2 energy shells, and I'm going to draw them right now. 1, 2. My first row, energy shell number 1, if I have 2 N squared, my first shell can hold 2 electrons. So I'm going to put 2 on there. And I draw my electrons just a circle with a negative sign in it to show the negative charge. So 2 electrons out of the 5, I have to add 3 more. I'm going to add those on the next energy shell. There is the Bohr model for boron. The last example before I let you work on your own, I'm going to draw aluminum with you. First step, I want to see how many protons, electrons, and neutrons, and I get this from the periodic table. Aluminum's atomic number is 13, so I have 13 protons and 13 electrons. Atomic mass is 26.9, so it's going to round to 27 minus 13 is going to give me 14 neutrons. Step number 2, you're going to draw your nucleus. So if you want to pause right now and try to draw your nucleus and then come back and check it, that would be a great idea. So go ahead and pause. And if you didn't pause and you just watched, here we go. So in my circle that represents my nucleus, I'm going to have 13 protons and 14 neutrons. Next step is I'm going to draw my energy levels. Aluminum is in the third row, so I need 3 energy shells. 1, 2, 3. And I have 13 electrons to put on there. Shell number 1 can hold 2 electrons. We knew that from the previous example. Shell number 2, 2 times 2 squared. 2 squared, 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, so the second one can hold 8. But that only gives me 10 electrons. I'm going to have 3 more in my third energy shell. So I can go ahead and start, if you want to pause again and try to draw your own, and then come back and check, that'd be a great idea. So you can pause. The first shell is going to have 2 electrons. 1, 2. My second shell is going to have 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that brings me up to a total of 10, but I need 3 more. 1, 2, 3 on that outer shell. There's the Bohr model for aluminum. My Bohr model is pretty messy because I'm writing on my iPad. Yours will be much more beautiful and nice when you practice on your own. You now have some Bohr models to draw, so if you are comfortable, you can go ahead and start drawing those on your own. If you get stuck, I want you to first rewatch the video. If you are still stuck, ask somebody. If you are still stuck, talk to me. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Goodbye.